Welcome to the Microsoft Cybersecurity Capabilities discussion. My name is Mark Simos, Lead Cybersecurity Architect for Microsoft. Sean?
Yeah, thank you for your time. My name is Sean Anderson. I'm one of the Executive Security Advisors here at Microsoft.
So we're going to take a look through the main Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architecture, the Capabilities Architecture, and we're going to go and talk about it, assuming y'all have a pretty good understanding of security and have probably seen a revision of this in the past. So we'll kind of catch you up on kind of the latest focus and the latest capabilities that are in there. So much like the previous version, Cyber Reference Architecture does have hover text and links. So as you go over the slide in presentation mode, or I think now in edit mode as well, you can see small, 1 to 2 sentence updates, descriptions of what each capability is, as well as a link to the different documentation sites for it. So easy to use it as a learning tool there, and a few other links as well. The other thing that you'll notice, which you've noticed by the time you get to see this video, is that this is part of a larger collection of reference architectures as well. So that was one of the other big changes with this release. So in the beginning, there was basic networks and firewalls, right? The first thing we protected was the servers. That part hasn't really changed too much from the previous version of it. Anything you want to add here, Sean?
Yeah, some of the evolution that has changed, though, is it's in Microsoft over the past 5 years has worked really hard to get away from the only Microsoft products and capabilities.
Absolutely.
So as you look through this, make sure you understand that we have developed our capabilities to, one, be back-end compatible for on-prem environments, so it's not just cloud, and also working across, whereas we used to have Windows Defender, it's now Microsoft Defender as one of our capabilities, but we put this across everything we've been building so that it works across multiple operating systems, multiple cloud environments. So you really have a robust set of tools that you can work, and it's not just Microsoft's platform, but it works across everything you're trying to do from a cloud perspective.
Yeah. Linux, AWS, GCP, iOS, Absolutely. Android. This is security capabilities. These aren't security for Microsoft. They are security capabilities all up. And then endpoints and devices, the name change there for Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And then the other pieces have stayed fairly consistent with needing to secure Active Directory as well as Windows 10 security capabilities. Software as a service, we did update the Active Directory capabilities there. Passwordless and MFA, passwordless becoming a dominant theme. We now have the end-to-end ability to do passwordless, including employee onboarding. And then multiple passwordless technologies, so the Authenticator app through Windows Hello for Business and the FIDO2 keys. So there are some updates there. And many of the other capabilities remain consistent there.
Couple of points on this part here. When we first rolled this out, I was really surprised at how many customers weren't aware of which version of Windows they were running. The tools and things in here are assuming you're running Windows 10 Enterprise. And also from a conditional access or identity perspective, we really look at that as the control plane, the first avenue of access into any environment, but really understanding that that's trust nothing and verify everything now. And we've really changed that a little bit from the mentality of trust but verify. Now we're going to build an environment that's going to really just have ongoing protections in place and being able to mitigate what might be happening as far as access control.
Yep. And then the ordering of this was intended to show how software as a service tends to be the first thing that most organizations use to go to the cloud, and how those identity pieces really help you establish that new perimeter, as some like to say. The old perimeter isn't going away, but the new perimeter really needs to be established for those new things on the outside, and then also then extending it to the on-prem as well, because you don't want to simply accept that your firewall is good enough and in your border defenses. You want to be able to take some of these new explicit validation of device and identity and the zero trust goodness that comes from that from a security perspective. You want to be able to extend that onto your existing on-prem apps by publishing them with Azure AD App Proxy. So that was another significant update here, is showing that connection between the two, because you're bringing that new perimeter to help supplement and increase the control and visibility of your on-premises capabilities. We talk about that more in the Beyond VPN section. And then, as we mentioned earlier, everybody's infrastructure is going from on-prem to hybrid, and it's a hybrid of multiple clouds in most cases. There's a few cases where organizations picked exactly one cloud to go with, but we see multi-cloud becoming the norm at many organizations. There's a complexity, cost, and tax to doing so, but it is something that we do see very commonly across a lot of organizations. And we did add the private link there as well. ExpressRoute was there prior, Marketplace, and all those capabilities from our great partners, but private link is also a new block.
Yeah, I wanted to add it hasn't changed from the last time, but people might not be aware. The dotted line items are like those third-party metal vendors, so to speak, that you might have today. We continue to build out connectors to our security capabilities and our products, which you'll see. And we also have built in capabilities since the last version of this that you, the customer, can build your own connectors. So if you have those third-party items, don't think that because you're licensed with something today and you go build something on Azure that you're not going to be able to utilize the license or utilize the capability. That's the farthest thing from the truth. But you do have to get smart on it and where it's located and how it might work.
And as organizations first go to the cloud, those familiar tools and capabilities tend to be the simplest solution. But we're also seeing, because we're focused very much on making security as easy as possible, we're starting to, we saw a lot of organizations demand native controls, things that were built in. So as they got more comfortable with the cloud in general, or they had development teams that really weren't wedded to the existing tool set and capabilities, they wanted to have just give me something that's built in, something that's simple, that's easy. I want a firewall as a service. I want DDoS as a service where I just click a box or I set a policy to make sure it's installed and configured all the time. And so Microsoft has been investing quite a bit, and you'll see that list has changed a bit on the Azure services since the last time into the native controls for networking, firewall, WAF, DDoS, et cetera, as well as you'll see the Azure Defender in a moment. Azure Security Center, one of the changes has been a name change. So Azure Security Center still exists. It's still the portal you access. It's all the hygiene elements, the secure score, the compliance reporting, et cetera. But the threat detection elements of it have been renamed to Azure Defender. And so Azure Defender is now part of our XDR capabilities. So XDR is extended detection response, essentially an extension of the idea of EDR, the endpoint detection response, which is instead of throw me a bunch of logs and put it in the SIM, which is, takes a very long time to get to a high quality alert if you ever do with querying there on raw event logs. These are tools that actually know exactly how Azure Storage works and what an anomaly that is worth investigating looks like, what an alert should be showing up in your SIM to drive the investigation. And Microsoft has invested quite a bit in this for SQL, for Kubernetes, for all sorts of different capabilities, the storage and application services, and you name it, because we don't want people spending all their time trying to come up with a good query in a SIM. We want them having their security analysts actually respond to real incidents and feed those into them and have them investigate it, rapidly get rid of it, and be done with it.
You also have the ability for those security analysts that are responsible for those different areas to be able to go in and look at, I'm responsible for storage, so I can go to Defender for storage. I'm responsible for endpoint, or I'm responsible for databases. And yet you still have the luxury of having that data, that graph API in the back end. If you want to feed everything into your SIM for an overall view, you have that option as well. But understand there's a lot of different Defender pieces that go into that XDR platform. That's why we call it an XDR platform. And going back also, a lot of where all of this was very manual in the past, there's a lot of automation that's been brought to the Defender platform in the way of security orchestration, remediation, machine learning, behavioral analytics, detonation chambers. We're basically taking a lot of that big funnel of all the information coming in, and we're shoving it through so that it comes out a little bit smaller on the outside, on the other end, to help your analysts really make quicker decisions and be more proactive in their response.
Yep, we got to get the most out of the people that we've got, because we have some really smart, talented people. We don't want to burn them out on logs and other stuff like that if it's not necessary. The other part of Azure Defender is we've extended it to the IoT and OT space. So OT being SCADA, ICS, any kind of machines or computers that control a physical machine or a physical process. We now have, through the acquisition of a company named CyberX, extremely good threat detection response, inventory, and some vulnerability assessments as well. So we now have the ability to not only protect those traditional Azure devices, but with Azure Defender for IoT, which we cover a lot more in the OT section of the reference architecture, we have the ability to do threat detection, et cetera, on those machines. And those could be 30 to 50-year-old electronics attached to a 50 to 100-year-old physical machine that might actually still be running on Steam in some industries. So very important to understand that Azure Defender really does take that XDR to heart across all of that sort of back end of your enterprise estate. And then, that of course bridges us into the security operations world, or Security Operations Center, SOC, where the XDR philosophy is continuing on. So it's not just the back end, it's also the productivity environment. So your identities, your Office, and that includes not just inbound email, but uploads, Teams, you name it. So the threat detection response capabilities there, of course, the traditional EDR on the endpoint. And then the CASB, or Cloud App Security, acts as an XDR. It does many other things as well, but it acts as an XDR for SecOps. And the thing I want to highlight here is you'll notice Defender for Endpoint and Cloud App Security each have a bunch of different sub-bullets or blocks underneath them. At Microsoft, we really don't want to be having people install multiple agents, right? We've got an agent on there, let's do all the stuff with it. We want to do the DLP, we want to do the web content filtering, we want to do the EDR. We just want to have one agent that's efficient, that's built into Windows, and then a single agent for everybody, for all the other operating systems, that does it all. And so you don't have to have a stack of security agents that take up to, I think the worst scenario that I heard was actually it took a gigabyte of RAM and a full virtual processor on servers because of how many security agents were on in this particular organization, a relatively conservative organization. But the resources that it takes, the performance hit, the supportability issues, we want to avoid all that stuff. So we built that one agent to do all those things. Similarly, Cloud App Security, one tool that provides you the governance, the data discovery, the XDR capabilities for the threat detection, the information protection stuff. So very important to simplify it, because even though you have to cover your whole estate, which is complex, you want it to be as simple as it possibly can be. And so we've been investing very heavily into that.
Yeah, and in my role, I talk to 1 to 3 CISOs of Fortune 1000 companies every week, and it amazes me how many of them in our industry have not taken a look at what Microsoft has done in the last few years. I've been on board about 5 years. We started at, I think we're at 400 million, and now we're a $10 billion security business. So this isn't ether where it really exists. Azure Sentinel is a great cloud native SIEM that you should be looking at. It wasn't on the first version of this, so it's cloud native, which means what? I don't have indexers and forwarders anymore that are hardware based. It's all cloud based. MCAS, I have a lot of customers who are doing identity the right way. They're doing information protection, but they haven't implemented a CAS solution. Really take a look at the Microsoft Cloud App Security tool, because it's in the last 2 years, the improvements, and you really need this if you're an enterprise, if you're any customer, but really at the enterprise level, because if I have great information protection, but I have the ability to save it to a third-party app that nobody's controlling, then I win. And we don't want you to lose your data. We want you to have control over your data, because we're custodians of it. So if you put it in Azure, here are the tools you have to monitor, to manage, and really understand what's happening with your data, because we can only do so much to protect the fabric. It's your responsibility to utilize all the tools on this page.
Yeah, and it's funny, I've actually been here since we didn't have a security business at Microsoft, 21 years as of the recording. And it's been an interesting transition to watch us go from a platform provider, Windows Cloud, et cetera, to a cloud provider that is also a security provider in a full way, in both ways. And so it's a really great advantage for us to be able to kind of take advantage of the synergies of those two and be able to provide the best of both worlds on it. So it's, I've really enjoyed watching that journey go along and supporting. So, SDL, pretty much same as it ever was, and being updated for DevOps and some other pieces, and we're continuing to drive some additional guidance there with some of the cloud adoption framework pieces, which are linked in the main cyber reference architecture. And then the GitHub Advanced Security. So there's some great capabilities there that integrate security into the DevOps process. So really cool stuff to check out there, well worth looking at. Some of it is organic and built, and some of it was from an acquisition of a company called Sentinel that GitHub acquired recently. a couple of years ago now. What used to be privileged access workstations and then the admin forest has shifted a little bit. We updated our guidance not too long ago with a full set of securing privileged access guidance, not only the existing roadmap, which we updated, but also the privileged access workstation guidance. So it's now tied in using that same conditional access technology that we're applying to users. There's some great device filtering and some other things in there that really enabled that connection to happen and allow us to kind of put the on-prem configuration behind. Now it's still available. You can still do that on-prem configuration, but it's no longer the best option in 99% of the scenarios. And so we've got this full set of strategy, tactics, guidance, implementation, scripts, the whole 9 yards. So great stuff there, and also super important. Privilege access, you've got to treat that different than regular users, because there's a big difference between losing a sheep and losing a shepherd, because you lose the whole flock if you lose a shepherd. For being an administrator. Information protection. All the stuff so far has been very much baseline. So making sure that overall across the organization, you have good monitoring, good preventive controls, et cetera, built in. Then from a business perspective, what is the things that are worth more? What are the things that are a big impact? I've got to discover those. I've got to protect those. I've got to monitor those. I've got to respond quickly to those. I want to prioritize the response on something that could cost me $1 billion more than one that would cost me $10,000. So we have to make sure that we're focused on that. So that's where the information protection really comes in and shines through Microsoft Information Protection and Azure Purview. And so the thing about Purview is it's not just a security tool. In fact, that's only one part of what it does. This is also the tool that allows you to discover all the data in your environment and figure out what you have, right? To understand your data estate, which is as complex as your technology estate, and then figure out how to generate revenue and make money and get insights on customers, et cetera, from that data. So Purview does that, and it also classifies and labels. So that was one of the ads that really helped, because our Microsoft Information Protection prior to that was really only the structured data, the files that, the unstructured data, the files that could float around. But this allows us to now do all the structured data in databases and all the new formats that are coming through Azure and the other cloud stuff, because it does work across clouds. Really, really exciting stuff there.
And we've invested and continue to invest a lot in information protection, especially around that data governance piece. A lot of customers came to us and said, I'm getting hit now by these regulatory issues that I don't know where my data's at, or I don't know what type of data I have, or I lost access to credit cards, or social security numbers or part numbers. So that data, it's more than just DLP anymore. We really have to look at what is the hardware security that can help us with data protection, what's happening across our cloud and our on-prem environment. And so when you take a look at these, really understand that we've added a lot of functionality here, and it still requires you to have an architecture. And this will really help you to bring it together if you look at it from a governance, e-discovery, break down all those parts and understand why are we putting an information protection strategy in place. It's absolutely critical that you think of those things.
Absolutely. And then, the compliance manager, which is part of that information protection piece, sort of related, as well as the data governance e-discovery, which are new additions as well. One of the features of compliance manager is compliance score. And so there's, and then of course, secure score as well. So these really help with how am I doing? What should I be doing next? How am I doing relative to my peers or others in industry, in the case of secure score? So the capabilities in secure score are great. And then there's been a lot of investment done, especially on the Azure side, to be able to report compliance on it through Azure Security Center, which we mentioned earlier, that help you not only see your enterprise from a security perspective, but also look at it and report compliance on it. And this is like a great place to kind of illustrate how the cloud is changing security for the better. It's bringing security and compliance together so that instead of having to do a manual audit that's painful and takes months, some parts of it are still painful, like the manual processes and the people elements of it, right? But all the technology and the information gathering for the cloud, you just grab an on-demand report, done. And so that's allowing you to report compliance so fast that you can actually report off the same data that you're looking at the security perspective from. And it's bringing those two disciplines, which are always trying to answer the same question, just all up everything for compliance. And then I need to fix one problem or my most urgent problems in security. So pull those together, which I think is a great thing, because it takes these two things that were artificially separated by scope and constraints.
And we've added some new capability there too. Secure Score used to be very static, and you were just looking at basically what do I have Microsoft wise. Now you can put in your third party. So if you have a tool that's doing something that Secure Score says you're not, you can put in there that yes, I'm doing it. Compliance Score, same thing. You have the ability now, if okay, I have something that needs to be done, how do I do it? You can take that action and put that, say, hey, this control's not being done, put it into the planning tool, and it'll create a task that actually has to go through the approval process. So we've added functionality, not just to see visually, hey, I got to do something, great. Okay, who's going to do it? You can put it in the system now to make it forcing function to say, hey, Bill, Sue, take a look at this, tell us what you want us to do. And that goes back to the whole, this is about risk management and being able to really build an architecture that helps you manage your vulnerabilities and respond faster, which takes us to that final piece, I think, which is the people factor.
Yep. And the last thing, I do want to say one more thing. The Secure Score, I want to highlight what you mentioned earlier and really emphasize it, cross-platform. The Secure Score elements in Azure include, hey, we are monitoring and we're looking at AWS and GCP. We've used Azure Arc to project them into Azure, so to manage them to Azure Defender and all these other wonderful capabilities. That includes Secure Score, so you can actually get insights through that compliance reporting view of it or the security side of it into all of your third-party and your on-prem capabilities. So this is, all of that philosophy is woven throughout all these capabilities.
Right.
Do you want to go on the people side, Sean?
So people being the unknown factor normally, we have to do the right training, but we've also put some tools in there that'll help you from put the stop signs in place, so to speak, for your end users, but also train your staff. You have your analysts, your auditors, your people that are working on the SOC floor. We have attack simulators now that you can go in and simulate what a ransomware, a DDoS attack might look like. Insider risk management, looking at that end user behavioral analytics. I look at the attack life cycle and where all of this fits. I've got bad actors coming in, bad actors that might be in, or bad actors that have already left and took something. We allow you to look at this from a risk perspective of, hey, is Sue or Bill leaving in 2 weeks? Is there a lot of files being moved somewhere off the share? You have the ability now to look at people that are traveling globally. Do they have access to the right things in the right areas? And then the compliance piece, of course, we keep talking about, but we have a robust compliance environment now. It used to be part of Secure Score, and we pulled it out to its own environment now. And now you have this compliance manager, compliance tool that allows you to understand what people are doing across the organization. So if they're doing something that might be outside of compliance, it'll get flagged and notified so that somebody can go and talk to them or act on it and say, hey, we need to fix this.
Yep, and the way I think about the people side is we're looking at the good side and the bad side of people. We want to help educate people that really want to help make the organization secure, enable, empower them, inspire them, and make sure we're doing metrics that don't drag people down, because that's one of the key elements that they had on the attack simulators. We didn't want people gaming the system. We wanted people to be genuinely improving security posture, not just making the phishing emails easier so that they could get better click rates, right? So that's one, and so that's a good side, but there's also the bad side of the insider risk piece. So we've got to look at people holistically there, without a doubt. And so my last closing thoughts here is just don't forget to hover over those things as you present it. Check out the little descriptions. They take you right to the docs page for that particular capability, and also the slide notes in the slide deck. In the main one actually has the deltas and the changes from the last version, and then in the build slide one that we're using now actually talks click by click through these. So Sean, any last thoughts before we close out?
Just one or two. If you are interested in getting information on any of this, reach out to your account teams. We also have workshops around a lot of this where we can come in and just talk Azure security. We can just talk identity or information protection. So reach out to your account teams. We can come on and help you with those workshops.
Yep, we're here to help you. Thank you.